Un de nos auteurs parle la langue de Shakespeare. Bienvenue pour cette table ronde intitulée «L'Afrique et ses légendes urbaines» avec Igoni Barrett. Bienvenue, Igoni. Et Yaya Diomandé. Et un grand merci à nos interprètes qui sont cachés dans la cabine. On ne les oublie pas, mais sans eux, la conversation ne serait pas possible. Igoni Barrett, vous êtes Nigérian.
So, Igoni Barrett, you're Nigerian, you live in Lagos, and you wrote two anthology of short novels and a novel called Black Ass. And for the moment, just one book of yours has been translated into French, Love is Power, or something like it, translated from English by the fantastic Sika Fakandi and published in 2015. 9 short novels where you have love, missed love, violent love, love that has been abandoned, badly loved, or not to choose the right person to love, your social, political vision of love too. Love is power, something like it. Yaya Diomandé, you were born in Ivory Coast and you live in Abidjan. And in 2020, you won the first prize, Voix d'Afrique, that was set up by Jean-Claude Laquet's edition, RFI, for your first book, Abobo Marley, so a prize, hence published, édition Jean-Claude Laquet. And I think publishers in Ivory Coast did want to publish your novels. It was a huge victory for you. So the book, Abobo Marley, is the story of Moses, a young boy, a young man in Abidjan from Abobo Marley, who dreams about the Western world, Europe, and we will follow your character in a book where your character will learn, try, fail, try again, go to jail, fail, try again. Maybe it's a description of Abidjan and the neighborhood of Abobo Marley. Both of you live in former capital cities. Both of them are port cities. Huge economic cities. Lagos and its metropolis is the first or second biggest city in Africa. Abidjan, the second biggest city in Western Africa. I speak about your cities because they are the heart of your books. Yaya Diomandé, Abobo Marley. You say Abobo is the area most dangerous in Abidjan, Marley, the less secure part of this area. And Igoni Barrett, even though you don't name Lagos in each of your short novels, we have the feeling that they all happen within this huge city. So, we speak about urban legends, so we will speak about urban things. What are the symbols of, what do your cities symbolize, and are they inspiring too?
Well, first, thank you for coming. The city, or the town, actually, in my collection of stories, is actually an imaginary place, much like Faulkner's Yokna Potofer County or Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Macondo. So I call it Poteco. Now, Port Harcourt is, for me, is a microcosm of Nigeria. So it has all the little elements of Nigeria that I was trying to put together in order to focus on the urban area, write about the city, but speak to the larger country. And so in that sense, yes, you will find Lagos and Port Harcourt, but this imaginary city of mine, but you'll find other parts of Nigeria. So just wanted to make that clear. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Tout à fait. J'avais cherché si.
Absolutely. Actually, I looked up Sipoteco, like Abobo, and actually I didn't find it. But in some novels, you speak about Lagos or the airport. But we'll get back to that urban part of the novels later. So, Yaya Diomandé, you were not born in Abidjan. You were born in Manque, the mountain city, the most beautiful area in Quetteville, in Ivory Coast. You've got rivers, forest, but nevertheless, Abidjan is the most powerful economic city in Ivory Coast, and our government don't want to decentralize the power. So everything happens in Abidjan. So any young person wants to go to Abidjan and to live there. Before, everything used to happen in Abidjan. Now things are starting to happen also in the regions. Hence this city where everybody meets. So it's the Ivory Coast designed by Fouet Pané. And of course, it is inspiring.
Ces villes, qu'elles soient imaginaires avec un peu de Lagos et un peu de tous les
These cities, whether imaginary or partly imaginary, these cities are shown mutating. The population increases. Is it something you want to write about it? Is it something you want to write about? Of course, in Ivory Coast, we've gone through different crises. So when you go to Abidjan, it's inspiring. Also, Nigeria is a mutating country. Lagos is a mutating city. It is really impressive the way it's spread.
Yes, but then I have to say that in many ways I wrote this book in 2012. And I find that I'm a writer who, I've written 3 books. The first was a collection of short stories. This was my second book, but my first international book. And then the third was my first novel. And in many ways, I've found that I feel like I'm a writer who will not write a lot of books. I'll write a few books, but they will focus on things that interest me at that point in time. And in between 2007 and 2012, what interested me was the city, in many sense, because I felt the city held the key to understanding Nigeria. And I felt I didn't understand Nigeria as a middle-class, educated, half Jamaican, person. I always had to defend my surname in Nigeria because it's a Jamaican surname. I also always had to defend the fact that I could, I could speak, fluently with people from the States, or that I'd watched the same TV programs of people from Europe. So in many ways, in Nigeria, the middle class is a minority. That's one of the odd things about, one of the ways that you tell what the middle class is in Europe is that they are the general people, they are the majority. Whereas in many African countries, the middle class are actually the minority. And so I found myself as an educated minority in Nigeria, born in a city. I found myself in the position of trying to understand my own country, and I felt that the city was the way to understand it, because most people would migrate to the city anyway, the United Nations claimed. That was many years ago, and I've changed my mind. I actually don't think. I think going to the Sahara Desert might actually show where the migrations are going. And so I find myself, I've moved away from that idea that the city is its own beast. I feel like it is representative of a country, but it is not the key to understanding a country. Well, Nigeria. I can speak about Nigeria. And so in that sense, I just wanted to again make clear that at the time I crafted these stories, I was interested in understanding human beings, individuals, Nigerians, but I thought one of the ways to try and understand them was through the city. By the time I moved to Blackers, my novel, I thought, I could focus on one city and try to understand people through that. And now I'm working on my second novel, and I find myself going to, at some point I might end up on Mars. I might end up in space to understand humanity. So I'm just saying there are many ways, many ways to tackle these stories. At this point I was interested in the city, but I think I'm moving on from the city because it feels like a unidimensional, one-dimensional way to look at a country that is as chaotic, complex, infuriating as Nigeria. And people who come and see Lagos and think that is Nigeria are making a really grave mistake.
And do you have to understand Abidjan to understand Ivory Coast? Or if you get to Abidjan and you think you understand Ivory Coast, you're wrong. No, Abidjan is a metropolis that has many characteristics, but when you get out of Abidjan, you find an almost empty countryside, because a lot of people want to live in Abidjan. So it's wrong to say you can understand Ivory Coast only through Abidjan. So the issue of this session is urban legends, and I wanted to get ready and to understand what we mean by urban legends. They're generally based on real facts, and they evolve into myths, even fake news. So it's interesting to make a parallel with literature. Although, as Igoni, you said, Côte is a city I made up from different cities. I think in both your texts, in both your books, we find many real things you use in order to take us somewhere, elsewhere. But I think we have much information on the situation of your countries, of your people, your communities. So what are urban legends in your books? Is it that much amplified, modified, or is it very close to reality? Well, Abobo Marley, where you are born there, and school is not priority for their parents, they end up having petty jobs, badly paid. So when the book was published in France, a friend in Abidjan read the book, and he said, Yaya, am I a character of your book? And the part where Moses shines shoes for students in Abidjan, there's a part where the trade union leader asks Musa whether he's a student or not, and he says, yes, I'm a student. And then the trade union leader says, okay, you shine shoes now, but later you will study and you will make money, etc., etc. And it's interesting because my friend told me that this is almost literally what he was said, what he was told. And I told him, no, it's not specifically your story, but it's the story of all the young people at home. And the other part, when my character goes to Maca, the Maca prison, I had to find information about this venue on the internet in 2012. There was no information, so some student friends went to prison by the regime, jailed by the regime in 2015 in order to get information and to be sure that my fiction was completely coherent with reality. So you speak about 2012, but you finished your book in 2015. So the legend, the myth in the book, maybe Bengue is the myth, the legend in the book. Bengue and the love Musa has for his mother, because this is this love is the power that is given to Musa to accomplish himself. So it's the bridge between the love for his mother and the need to make his mother happy, but dreaming of Europe and France in particular. Is it a guarantee for a better life? Because I think a lot of people who came here go back home disappointed. I want to say that all the young people who sail across the Mediterranean Sea and sometimes die there are not looking forward to living to Europe. To living in Europe. They flee from their country. I'm from Ivory Coast. There is work there, and a lot of people come to my place because they think that sometimes it's better to live in Ivory Coast than in their country, so they run away from poverty. And maybe something we don't really understand in France, and actually that has impacted me after reading your book, is school, where the older brothers and sisters start working very quickly in order to pay school for the younger brothers and sisters. And this idea of paying for school, this is something that we don't have in France, because school is free of charge, and all young people have to go to school for their first 16 years. Yes, you're lucky in France, you are lucky. Some people told me that Abobo Marley is a dangerous area, but in my book, you don't feel that this area is very dangerous, and I can explain it because my character is from there. So my character doesn't understand the dangerousness of his neighborhood. So the same thing goes for you. You are in France, so sometimes you don't understand how lucky you are.
To jump in about luck, I'll have to say, when I arrived in France for this festival, I had to stay in quarantine for 7 days. I thought I was going to do some writing, but I found myself watching a lot of CNN. And during that time, I came across a report by CNN about the pandemic in Japan. Now we all know Japan is one of the richest countries in the world. Has great, pension schemes. People live to to an old age. So for many Nigerians, Japan is a rich country. It's a country where they will be proud, economic position, they'll be proud to have Nigeria hold in the world. But then I'm watching this report and I'm learning that during the pandemic, about 10,000 people died in Japan, from coronavirus, from COVID-19. But because of the lockdowns in Japan, about 23,000 people committed suicide in 1 year. And so actually almost double the number of people, more than double the number of people died from what they call the loneliness epidemic. People, older people living alone, people who never had children, people who retired, who never left their home. And they have this epidemic of older people who die and are not found for months. And I'm thinking, my country is a poor country in many ways. It's a country that has, economically, it's a country that loses its best minds because they're all, in many ways, heading to places where they will find work, And yet, we do not have a loneliness epidemic in Nigeria. You don't have 23,000 people committing suicide. In fact, last year, there were about 5 suicides that were reported in the newspapers in Nigeria, in Lagos. And that became a problem because Nigerians said 5 people committed suicide in this country, that's a problem. I was thinking about the same thing, there are 23,000 people committing suicide in one of the richest countries in the world. I just wanted to talk about the disparities, about the ways in which France might be lucky in terms of having a free education, but their suicide rates might probably be higher than Nigeria's, suicide rate. So it is relative, what you consider luck. So if you're looking for money, if you're looking for comfort, material comfort, yes, France is a lucky place. If you're looking for family happiness, if you like pepper, if you like Nigerian food, France is not a very nice place to live. So again, it depends on what you're looking for, I wanted to say.
And if I can react, and I hope we understand each other well, Europe is not paradise on earth, obviously, but if we have to go somewhere to make money and go back home with the money in order to allow your family to live with dignity, I think it's also a possible process. There's nothing wrong in doing that. About about leaving school, one of your characters, the dream merchant, the interpreter doesn't have the English version, and decides to rope people on the internet. That is something quite global, quite universal, the fact that young people look for money in order to do as the other ones do.
In a sense, yes, I would say. Let me say this. We talk about, we call it 419 in Nigeria. So there's been this group of young Nigerians who haven't found jobs, haven't found their way to Europe, but have decided to use their brains, to earn a living, which is what every human being wants to do. You move away from using your muscles to using your brains. And they have an education, they have a computer, and so for many of them, the only thing standing between them and criminality is a sense of morality. Well, when you're facing starvation, and when you're facing a country in which your leadership is not very moral, you lose that sense of morality very quickly. And so we've had an entire army of young people who go online and rob this faceless, for them it's faceless digital people. They don't see the harm because they don't see the faces of the people they're hurting. So that's happened, But at the same time, for example, again on CNN, I watched a lot of CNN during my quarantine, and there's been these attacks of ransomware that's happening, that American companies are being attacked, and a lot of those attacks are coming from Russia. A lot of those attacks are coming from China. The Nigerians haven't gotten into that business yet. We are not yet, holding big companies ransom, but watch out. But the point I wanted to make is that, look, if intelligent people have opportunities, like I did. I had an opportunity because I had a talent that was still considered something. I mean, my talent is writing, but writing doesn't pay my bills. Writing doesn't pay my house rent. Writing doesn't feed me. What feeds me is that you go out and buy this book and I get my royalty. That's what feeds me. And in many ways, that still works because there is a business system that works. If, for example, people did not respect my copyright, then I wouldn't make money. And so my talent feeds into an international business system that enables me to make a living from my talent. And there are many people who have talent. A lot of Nigerian music is now, or musicians are now making money from their talent, which they didn't before until things like the Apple Store, came, the iTunes Store. So you now have a lot of Nigerian musicians who before never made money from music, but in the past 15 years, are now selling their music in France, and now getting on streaming, streaming their music to Japan, and earning a living, and now winning Grammys. So you see the ways in which technology is opening, spaces that the Nigerian government never opened. I live in Nigeria, and I earn my living as a Nigerian writer, but all my money is made in France, in China, in the US, in Italy. If I were to try and pay my bills with the books I sell in Nigeria, I'll be sweeping streets in Nigeria. So that's the conundrum of the person whose talent doesn't quite translate into an international business system. And then you're always on the fringes. So those Nigerian hackers or those Nigerian 419 criminals, the day there is a business that decides to use their skills in a legal way, then they enter the mainstream. So that's for the Nigerian government to figure out. How do you take these intelligent people who know how to make money off digital fantasies and turn that into the next Silicon Valley? That's a problem we have to figure out. And until they figure it out, I'll just, keep writing stories about it.
Vous venez de créer une nouvelle légende urbaine.
You've just created a new urban legend. What's Moses' talent? Is tenacious. Yes, he's a boy. When he has an objective, he do anything he can, everything to actually reach the objective. So ever since he was a very young boy, he decided that he wanted to help his mother. We don't have money, so I have to fulfill my dream. So he has to help her get food every day, do a pilgrimage, and so on. So at any moment, he stops studying, he gets jobs, sometimes he fails, but he never, ever abandons until the last moment when he becomes a gang leader, union leader, as we call it in Abidjan. And then afterwards he stops, he says, I will do something else, I will find a job. Unfortunately, he can't go on with his job. So he has to pay too many taxes, and he wants to live with his work, but it's very difficult. It's broken, too many taxes. And business is difficult because it takes years to design something. It takes years to actually find a place where we can actually do a proper job. So he says, nothing works in this country. I want to go elsewhere. I want to find something else elsewhere. And this dream is fully justified because he cannot make a living at home, so he has to go somewhere else. And maybe he will go back home afterwards. He's got a good quality, this hero. He loves his mother. He madly loves his mother. He respects her. He has a father who marries a second wife. He's got, who has the same age as Moses. She's a beautiful girl. She has a nice house, toilets, and the first wife stays in the garden, in a shed in the garden. Yes, when a child succeeds, it becomes the property of whole society. When I got a prize, for example, people called me saying, I'm the nephew of the great aunt of your mother, of your, you know, and people started calling me. But he's a successful guy, he got a literary prize, so people start dreaming, whereas they would not know me before, they would not, you know, talk to me before. So when a child succeeds, he becomes the property of the whole society. When he fails, it becomes the property of his mother. Musa is called the child of a bad mother. So that's Musa knows that. He knows that everything negative he does, everything bad he does, will have consequences on his mother. So he wants to love his mother, he wants to fight for her, actually. And fortunately, in this fight, he constantly loses. What he does is not considered as good. He wants to help his mother, but he's not lucky, and everything goes against him. He decides to hide in a ship, for example. He's very young, he's 17, 18, he's trying to hide to leave Abidjan, and he does it to go somewhere else because he wants to go on helping his mother, but it doesn't work. Then he tries to sell a car that he's in charge of. He's working for someone else, and it fails again but he wants to help his mother. Everything he does, it's for his mother. He's a rebel because he wants to help his mother, but his mother doesn't want dirty money. You know, she doesn't want money that has been stolen from someone. So he stops. When he becomes a gang leader, he's a unionist. His mother says, but this money, you don't take it. It's dirty money, until she's ill, and he tells her, you have to survive. I'm going to help you be better, and so on. So in the end, he decides to be sort of quiet, to get married, and so on and so forth. Igoni Barrett, in your short stories, we have all sorts of different mothers. In the first short story, something that happened, and something terrible happened. So you were talking about these Nigerian guys who go everywhere in the world. One in China, another daughter in UK, a son who disappeared in the US. Then he has another daughter again in the northern part of the country, and there is one with her, but she doesn't care about her. And you have something, great lines when Mabi says, her children had abandoned her during all these years. She has dedicated all these years to them. She's made sacrifices. She had given them love. All that she had given to them, she had given to them for nothing. No, not for nothing. I gave all this because I wanted to. It's probably the best definition of the love of a mother, isn't it?
It is a good definition of the love of a mother, but I wanted to connect that to what you were saying. And it's also a good definition, or I would argue, what should be the definition of the love of a son? Because you should also give because you want to and not because you have to. And that is where I'm right now in my growth as a writer, that I come from a society where we have all the stereotypes and cliches. Africans love family. We depend on family. Family, you know, we are family-loving people. You know, sons take care of their mothers. Daughters give up their lives to take care of their fathers, even though their fathers didn't pay school fees for them in their childhood. Where does it stop? You know, why do we just have to go? I'm sorry, Mama, this is not about you, because I actually sent the live stream of this event to my mother. She's probably watching somewhere in London. So this is not about you, Mama. But I wanted to say that these are cliches, because actually, I'm married to a Dutch woman, and the ways in which my mother-in-law expresses love to her daughter, as powerful as anything I've seen. In fact, more powerful than many things I've seen in Lagos. There are people who, so this concept, I also hear these stereotypes about Italians. The Italians are the Africans of Europe because they also have the mother thing. Well, actually, there are many Lagosians who don't see their mothers for decades. Much like has happened in urban areas around the world, people tend to become more, more distant from those expectations we had of them. So there are actually many Nigerians who feel that pull, many city-based Nigerians who feel that pressure to respect your mother, but also at the same time have deep-seated traumatic experiences of how they were punished as children. And this is something that's beginning to come to the fore in societies around the world. Sexual abuse, how parents sexually abuse them. So will you love your mother who sexually abused you? So in many ways, I have found myself in this position where it was beginning to appear in that story, where there was this mother who had reached the end of her life and had given a lot to her children, but her children had their own lives. And they had to deal, they were living in cities, they were living in other parts of the world. They didn't have the time to sit in the village and, clip their mother's toenails. They had to move on with their lives. And so she comes to that realization as a mature, I love that character, because she realizes that I will not go and beat them over the head with, make them pity me, or beat them over the head with the fact that I'm your mother, so you must respect me. And she says, I gave them love as a mother because I wanted to. That's a lioness. You give them love, and when they're old enough, let them go and hunt. And and so in many ways, that's where I wanted to come from. This is something I also fight in Nigeria. You always hear the story, we are mother-loving people, we are father-loving, you must respect. And I'm standing up for those Nigerians who just want to be left alone, to try and make their way in a country that is falling down around them. Sometimes, build a country rather than taking care of your mother sometimes.
Et puis la figure de la mère, vous l'égratigniez aussi dans
and you attack the mother character, in one short story, Timi's mother. She's not an ideal mother, is she? I mean, it's not the ideal image of what a mother should be. Iconic mother who takes care of her children. When in your novels, or in your short stories, sometimes, in this case, for example, it's not that she doesn't love her children, but she doesn't treat them well.
Because love is complicated. Even in marital relationships. I mean, love is complicated. And sometimes, you can be a mother who loves a child but just doesn't have the way to express it. And you can be a child who has feelings, Proust loved his mother, but he spends her life complaining about her. And so in many ways you see that, Kafka obviously loved his father, but go read his diaries and all the things he had to say about his father. So it is not as easy as loving a person and that's it. We love and then we'll move on to the next. Because you actually take some of those unfulfilled feelings from parenting into your marriages, into bringing up your own children. And many of the ways in which my contemporaries, I'm not talking about Nigeria at large, I'm going to focus on a lot of my friends and the ways in which corporal punishment, physical punishment of children is passed along because the Bible says it's right, because you spare the rod and you spoil the child, were handed to them by their own parents. And many of them have grown to a point where they have conflicted feelings about physical abuse, which is what it is, but still we forgive them because they are parents and we must love them. Well, you can draw a straight line from families abusing their children to the police slapping you in the street. And that, for me, is that the solutions to the problems in Nigeria and in Côte d'Ivoire and in Ghana and probably in Japan lies in fixing the family. And so if we all say, you love your mother and that's it, no. The family has other issues beneath loving mothers and hating fathers.
Je vais répondre ici ce qu'il a dit
I can react to what you're saying about mothers. Yes, African likes their families. It's a cliche, but Africa is not one country. Right? We have, before colonial times, before French or Germany and other countries came, in Niger, for example, you have Ibu, Yoruba, Hausa, and other tribes or ethnies. And you are in Côte d'Ivoire, and in that case, love of parents is not something you discuss. Same for mothers. You don't discuss, you don't react to love of a mother. When I got this prize in Africa, a friend wrote to me, we hadn't met for years, but he says, congratulations. He says, maybe what you're saying is right, but I'm going on with my family. My parents went on pilgrimage. He just wanted to explain that he actually loved his parents. And that was his main success, the love he has for his parents. So some people in Africa don't love their parents for justified reasons, but when you're from Monday, it's not negotiable. You don't negotiate the love you have for your parents. In your texts, I mean, you also talk about women, the situation of women. The father marries a second wife, and his mother is in the shed at the back of the garden, whatever. Someone talks to Moussa about the future wife of his father. She says he's an abortion machine. In one of your short stories, you have this trophy. It's the name of a local beer. And you have this joke that this young student, she has an affair with her teacher. She has she's been aborted twice. She had 2 abortions. Is it a serious problem in Nigeria or Côte d'Ivoire? Women's bellies, I mean, so the way they manage their body or don't manage their body or don't control their body. It's a very sensitive issue. I've got friends in Côte d'Ivoire who they have this very specific humor or jokes made in Côte d'Ivoire. In social media, we make jokes saying, today, Abidjan girls are afraid of being pregnant, not of falling ill. Because when you are pregnant, everybody can see it, whereas when you have a disease, nobody can see it, or it's not that obvious. So the risk of abortion is sometimes real. It's not official, but it's forbidden, illegally forbidden in Côte d'Ivoire, but they do it behind closed doors, I would say. It happens, of course.
But I thought abortion was a right of economically developed countries. So it is legal to get an abortion. And I know the U.S. right now is having a fight over the rights of women to decide what to do with their bodies. And so actually I would argue that a woman's right to whether she wants to keep a child or get rid of it, that's her right and shouldn't be up for discussion. Now, I would argue that Nigerians should have the right to abort if they want to. If a woman feels I'm the right to have a child, she can decide to, get rid of the fetus. But at the moment, again, because we deal with stereotypes, and the Nigerian government will say it is not an African culture, it's not African culture, to wear short skirts or to, for a man to be with a man, the same way it's not African culture for a woman to get rid of a baby because mothers love their babies. And so you use these cliches, you see the ways in which some of the stereotypes and these cliches are used to hold those nations down. And in many ways, again, I mean, that's curious place. Sorry, I'm trying to run away from this book, because I'm in that place where I'm beginning to ask the question. As a Nigerian writer who's lived in Nigeria my entire life, whose published in about 10 countries, and who watched, over the course of a 15-year career, watched my readership grow outside my country, outside the country I wrote about and the country I live in. Because remember, I write about Nigeria and I live in Nigeria, but it has been a wonder over the 15 years of my professional writing career to watch my readership just grow outside my country. I have more readers in Italy than I have in Nigeria. You know, I have more readers in China than I have in Nigeria. And I live in Nigeria and I write about Nigerians. And at some point I have to ask, when Jules Verne was writing, in many ways, he was writing about the world, but he was a French writer, and he was read by Frenchmen. You have to be welcome at home also. You have to be read at home. And so I'm in that place where I'm thinking, as much as I want to, in a sense, write about what Nigerians, I don't want to explain the country to people anymore. I want to actually, in a sense, begin to move the country to those things they cannot see. Because I feel one of the jobs of a writer is to hold up a mirror to society. And that mirror can be a cracked mirror and show you your do the Picasso thing. Show you your image in ways that you hadn't thought about. And that is why when they say, oh, it's the African, or when they even say it's a human thing to love your parents, I will say actually you can be a Proust. You can love your mother but be conflicted about her. You can do a Kafka. You can come from a family that took care of you, fed you, gave you a job, and you can still feel like your father turned you into an insect. And that's fine. And so it is about time to start having these conversations about our families instead of these, monosyllabic conversations about Africans love their mothers, and we all want to come to Europe to sweep floors. No. Some of us want to come to Europe to be the Queen of England.
Puisqu'on parle vous avez parlé du travail d'écrivain, j'aimerais bien qu'on parle.
You're talking about your job as a writer. Now let's talk about language. Yaya, you write in French, and you write in English, but both of you, in your books, there is more than purely French or English. I mean, Yaya, you speak Nushi in your book. And Igoni, you have broken English, Pidgin Nigerian, whatever. You explain what it is. You both explain what these languages are, the languages you live with. The language that gets along with the official language or academic language. Why have you introduced these languages in your text? In Nigeria, I think that there are more than 500 spoken languages. It's the country in the world where you have the highest number of spoken languages. I mean, so maybe I can start with you, Igoni. Is it because this country has so many different spoken languages that when you write, you cannot only write in English only, you have to use another language? Or again, are you introducing something real, a reality in your dialogue or in the representation of your characters?
I mean, I've been asked that question before, and each time I try to answer it differently, because you don't want to fall into patterns of just giving an answer by rote. But and I'm trying to bend that answer to fit France. And I have to say, the question I'll throw to the French audience is that in order for French to exist today, in this country that has existed for as long as it has, definitely about 1,000 years, a lot of languages had to die. A lot of people had to die. A lot of cultures had to be broken. The Britannia had to lose a lot of stuff. The Alsatians had to lose stuff. And so what you have is that the way human cultures work is that a hegemony comes and it crushes everything and it rises to the top. Right now, French is in a death struggle with English. We all know that. Now Chinese is trying to find its way in there. Spanish have South America and they're happy with that. And in many ways, we have a country, Nigeria, of about 200 million people, and we're not even in a conversation. When you buy a new laptop, for many years, I don't know if it's changed now, but in my Microsoft 2010 PC, it hadn't changed. That you buy the laptop and you go to the language section and you see English. English is offered in many versions. And you even find Jamaican English. You find Indian English. You find American English is the default. That's how they want the Brits. They are the default. So American English is going out into the world. You have British English. You do not have Nigerian English, which is spoken by a lot of people. And so in many ways, what you find with a lot of the young crop of Nigerian writers living in Nigeria, the way we speak is the way we are going to speak to the world. Now we have the advantage as Nigerian writers. We have an advantage over the Chinese even, that we grew up in a culture where we even have to speak to Nigerians who do not speak English. So like I said, the middle class is a minority in Nigeria. So actually, English-speaking Igoni Barrett is a minority. So there are many of my countrymen I cannot actually speak with, that I have to use a translator to speak with. And so in many ways, we have to find other languages and have a way. So it comes with body language expressiveness, but it also comes with that language which we call Nigerian Pidgin, which has elements of the English, elements of the native languages, and we'll come up with something that allows us to at least interact. Now we've had that for about 100 years, and it's growing into a language, the same way Latin grew, the same way Greek grew, the same way Italian grew out of the Latin. Languages evolve, but all you need to do is give it time. So Nigerian English is coming of age in a way. So you will find many Nigerian writers, especially those who grew up in the culture, who are not afraid to use Nigerian expressions in their writing. And you have enough of that, it will enter the culture. And then our Nigerian music is doing the same thing. So we have Nigerian musicians, the same way Jamaican musicians spread patois around the world. We're now having Nigerian musicians doing that. Nigerian movies. So the whole culture is, in a sense, driving the language towards a position of dominance, where we can stand one day on the streets of Paris and speak Nigerian English, and a Parisian will actually understand what we're saying. And we don't have to all put on British or American accents to be understood. Although, as a well-brought-up middle-class Nigerian, you are taught to be ready to speak to the Queen, to be ready to speak to the American professor, because in a sense you are trained to leave. You are trained to go and take up a job anywhere in the world. And that's the advantage that English has given us, that it allows us to travel anywhere in the world and work if you have an education. But at the same time, we are trying to undo that advantage by pushing this culture in which we're brought up.
Il nous reste 3 minutes pour que Yaya...
3 minutes, Yaya, for you. You have 3 minutes to talk about Nuchi. In Côte d'Ivoire, we have 60 different languages. They're not official. French is the only official language, the traditional classical French. But it's also a way of talking. We have the French from Côte d'Ivoire, it's different from Nuchi. When I speak French, I do not articulate, for example, so we don't like that. Articles, we say one book, we'll say, or the book, we say book. We'll say not the bottle, but bottle. So you have this specific version of French, and then you have Bouchi, which is the language of the streets. It's a mixture of French, local languages, BT and others. And in the novel, they're trying to speak that language because that's what the people in the street do. We have no official language in Côte d'Ivoire. I speak Mouchi. French is the only official language. In primary school, I didn't understand French. I knew 5, 10 words in French. But they say it's not my language. But little by little, we create a language. The street language becomes a real language. And this is what Bouchi is doing. Well, that's it. As far as we are concerned, we have to stop here. It's great to finish a conversation like this on the fact that we are creating a language. And you are both writing beautifully well, so do read their books. Love is Power. Igoni Barrett and Yaya Diomandé. The books are obviously available in the bookshop of this conference center. I think they're going to sign their books at one moment. You can check on the program. So thank you, many thanks to both of you, and please go on creating languages and literature. Thank you.